Welcome back to the Game Dev Diary podcast. I'm Eric, and I'm back to run another stand-up session and share where we are with building our 2D side-scroller strategy game called Strange Desert. It's a lot of rework, guys. Let's get into it. All right, September is here, autumn is here, my favorite season of the year is here, and I'm back to a non-summer routine, meaning my weeks are, and our weeks are not as hectic. We no longer have crazy summer plans, right? It's all done. And just back to the grind. We had a super busy week. We were actually grinding through the whole week. It's kind of unexpected. For sure, we've been working more than 8 hours a day on the game, on Strange Desert, which is a 2D side-scroller strategy game with settlement building, resource management, and a little bit of tower defense on the horizon as well. Really, really good, really awesome. And last week, I ran already the first stand-up, which was for week 9, I guess, and this is our 10th week. We are full-time working on this game for 10 weeks now. And before that, we were focusing on the game in a more chaotic way for about 2 to 3 months. Okay, so now let's get into the details. What did we accomplish? What did we work on, in case you are curious? So we set a goal for last week because we had a meeting on Monday and we kind of aligned on what we want to do next, which is a good practice, by the way, guys. Because we are a duo, it's 2 of us, Marzi and myself, we are working on a game. We decided that in order to get ready to build a proper demo for this game, we first need to work with whatever we have right now and make that pretty. Make it look good, make it play well. So that's what we've been working on, because the build that we've been using to test out various gameplay mechanics, it was a bit chaotic. So the assets were not really the most up-to-date assets, and also from a scale point of view, it was a little bit chaotic, the naming and all of it. So we managed to actually clean that up. Well, we set some rules for ourselves to make sure those are fine. And basically, we started to update and do a facelift for the current demo that we have, because we want to make sure that something that, we need to stand out in this industry for sure. Even though we are not the most experienced indie game devs in the world, I think what we work on is pretty cool, and we need to make sure that it's being represented in its best possible form. This was actually more difficult than we thought, especially because I worked on new character design. So I upgraded most of the character sprite sheets for our worker characters. The reason for that is because we had some visibility problems. So some of the characters just blended in too much into the background. So sometimes it was not too easy to spot them, notice them where they are, find them. And I wanted to make sure that you could find them easily on the map whenever you need them, because you want to allocate them probably to another workplace. The problem with that actually screwed up the animations for whatever reason. So those are the mysteries of Unity. And that gave a lot of work to Marzi, because he had to, first of all, re-import. And we actually worked a lot on structuring our sprite sheets in a way that is good for our game, because our workers, our player characters, basically change skin when you reallocate them from one workplace to another. So it's not as easy what we do. I'm not even sure there's other games doing that. So that was just an unconscious decision at the very beginning, and now we live with the difficulty of that. But the thing is that for whatever reason, so we had to figure out how to structure the files, and also to make sure that the animations are correct, and somehow we managed to screw that up. So basically Marzi had to redo the animations, which was quite a lot of work. Okay, the other thing that I was working on, which is something that I actually talked about last week, the reason I'm telling you that, you could tell that probably from one week to another that we set out or we think of what we will do next week, but it doesn't always happen that way. So I think the recreation of the animation was actually not planned. So that was more of an accident. So, and that those things happen. I think that's what the takeaway here is, that these things happen. So I also worked on the more detailed backgrounds and looping assets. So this is not the player area, right? Because the players are kind of in the more in the foreground, but I was working on some visual interest for the backgrounds, meaning that this is called Strange Desert. So I designed some dunes and also some mountains for the background, some trees. It's not as boring to look at. And yeah, it took me a while to get to a satisfying. To be fair, I'm never really satisfied with the outcomes, but I'm doing my best. I'm really giving it all that I can right now. And actually, that's one of the dangers that, especially if you spend a long time and you don't really know yet how the visuals for the game will be, that as you draw more and more for the game, probably your art and your results are a bit better all the time. And then the art that you worked on before, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, are not looking as great as the recent ones. And I often wonder how AAA big game projects handle this, because I'm pretty sure that happens, that, oh, I think I just came up with something a little better. So shall we go back and retroactively do a facelift for our old assets? I don't know, but I do that. But that's a dangerous game to play, I feel, because that could easily make this a never-ending story. I think I'm gonna give it like another shot just to actually standardize our buildings and environment components and assets and whatnot, because I think I have to. And there's a reason for that, and that's my next point. It's because we added in all the latest and greatest assets, and I realized that early on I used the strange perspective. So basically the bottom of the building assets was not a flat line. So it was a bit all over the place in terms of the design. I mean, they represent the same artistic language, I'd say, but there were slight differences. And the moment we wanted to apply some shadows to those buildings, it fell apart. So that's when I realized, oh my God, okay, I need to rework the buildings. So actually I had to rework some of the not just the buildings, but the trees and the resource areas like rocks and whatnot, because yeah, they just did not work with the standard shadow set that I wanted to use for the game, and it made the whole thing just fall apart. It was not too great to look at. So yeah, another big chunk of rework instead of working on something new. So yeah, character sheets fucked up the animations. I worked on detailed backgrounds and looping assets. Actually, looping assets is kind of a pain in the ass as well. And especially when you have changing biomes in a side-scroller game, pretty dynamically, it's quite difficult. You will see it more when I create some YouTube videos for this game, but just trust me, it's not easy. But I will for sure spend some time on a YouTube video explaining this, like why this was difficult. And then, yeah, like reworking the buildings and whatnot just to make sure they play nicely together with the shadows. That was not a small thing and a bit of an unforeseen incident, I'd say. Okay, but now on the better stuff, we also had a vision meeting. I just called vision meeting in terms of the purpose of the meeting was to align our thoughts on this game in terms of what we want this game to be, what deadlines we think about for the game, and what are the missing pieces of the game that we for sure want to add to make sure that we feel this is what we wanted to do with this game. So that was pretty cool. Actually, I highly recommend that for, well, if you're a solo developer, you have to do this on your own, which is, I think, extremely hard probably. Like discussing everything with yourself might not be too easy, but if it's two of you at least, then you have somebody to talk to. We also talked about not just in terms of features and stuff that we want to add and mechanics that we want to add to the game, but we also talked about how we would like to price the game, for example, like how do we feel about it, right? It's not really about hey, let's make it as expensive as possible. It was like, let's be realistic, do a little bit of comparison and see, like, from a visuals and from a mechanics point of view, where this game would feel right in terms of price point. So yeah, that's what we talked about as well. And it was pretty cool. It was like a 2 to 3 hours long session. Sometimes we ventured into game design, which is okay. But the most important thing was just align on what we are thinking about and what is in our heads, talk it out. We used a Miro board for that, so we managed to visualize and use post-its and whatnot. So it was pretty cool. I think everybody should probably do that if they can. And the final conclusion of that was that October 7th is our deadline for an internal demo of this game, where we might still have some placeholders, for example, music and sound placeholder assets, but they have to be in the game. So we want to make sure that we can do another round of playtest with a build that is representing more the to-be game, right? And this is, of course, to have a asset that we could show to publishers or players or whatever, but still have it as an internal one to get feedback and basically this year be able to work on a public demo for this game if the feedback was positive. I think that's the interesting one about this game is that, at least in my mind, we haven't really talked about this with Marcy, but in my mind is that we need to see the reaction to this game and see if we need to pivot, we need to change direction with it or whatnot. So I'm not sure if we are emotionally ready for that, but we will do our best. Actually, after the grind on Friday, this meeting was so good, I was energized and I had some new ideas. So I thought that I'm going to just, take a break on Friday after 4 p.m. But instead, because of the good vibes I got out of this vision meeting, I started working on the UI, the user interface for this game. I tried already 3 versions, but we hated all of it. I mean, not hated, but they just, it was all wasted effort. I mean, those were searching experiments, but I was quite disappointed in myself that I was not able to come up with a reasonable UI until now, although I spent like 2 weeks on it. So, well, you see, that's how it is. I think now I am on a better path, but still not quite there. But what the good thing is that I finally found a font for our game, and I worked on the logo for this game, at least the first version of the logo, which I'm quite happy with. So yeah, that has happened. And over the weekend, also Marzi sent me a video of how he improved the biome transitions and the parallax effects. Yeah, it's good. So it was a quite a busy week, a lot of rework. The game is getting prettier. It means I also have to work my butt out on improving the assets for the game, and then Marzi is making sure that it all translates well in Unity. To be fair, it was quite disappointing to see initially that it's quite... so when you create assets and you want to put it in, some of the behaviors are different compared to, for example, I could easily use a simple brush to create some atmosphere in a Photoshop file. When you put it into Unity and you use some particle system to make the same fog and dust a possibility, then it just doesn't work the same way. So, and I'm really, really focused on making the visuals great for this game as much as I can. And sometimes, the engine doesn't really let you just to do as you would do it in a like in Photoshop, for example. So it was kind of disappointing, and I was a bit scared along the way that, oh my god, maybe my assets will just not look good in Unity. But I think we are getting there. We just need to massage things into Unity to make sure that when my assets come to life, they look as good as they look on my concept art that I created. So, and I think the lesson learned here is that in my head, I never really estimated that, first of all, I create the concept art, or I create, just the characters in Procreate or Photoshop. And then I thought, oh, I just prepare the layers and I will just put them into Unity. But the thing is that there's a loop here. Actually, preparing the assets, I need to be much more disciplined, and I have to set some rules in terms of how these look like to avoid in the future, for example, like the recreation of it. So I have to set some rules, some more specific rules in terms of how the buildings or the characters should work. So in order to reduce the time that it takes to actually massage them into Unity, because when they come to life, you start to see, so when you start to move and, when you apply the parallax, you start to see that, okay, maybe they are not as polished as they should be. So, and I just didn't estimate or allocate too much time for that in the past. We just threw the assets into Unity. It didn't look bad, but it didn't look great either. So now lesson is learned, I feel. And I have to spend more time on polishing the assets. Okay, so with that, that was really the hands-on stuff. And I mentioned probably last time that I spent some time on ideation, and I learned a lot about just traditional business stuff, because I think eventually we will need. By the way, the how to market a game Discord server and website is pretty cool, I think, to get started. So I was thinking a lot about some marketing stuff for our game, because now I think the only marketing effort that I'm doing for this game is this podcast, which is listened to by like 10 people or 15, I don't know, but for sure not many people. but I have to get serious about it. So I was really thinking of the marketing side, like what platforms. Probably I'm gonna be focusing on, well, probably not a surprise. I think I want to take this stand up, or maybe some kind of devlog to YouTube. I'd like to really try YouTube. I will try Reddit, but Reddit is so weird. I'm still just getting used to Reddit. I love Reddit as a consumer, but as a creator, I think it's a bit more difficult to just organically be part of a conversation and at the same time start like soft promoting a game, right? So it's not easy, because the moment you sound like or look like a salesman on Reddit, they will just downvote you. So I don't want that. And I also want to bring some of the stuff into probably YouTube Shorts or Instagram, just to have like the portrait mode videos of it. So I really thought about content for the game and start communicating about it more. So have the proper channels established, and make content about it. And we will also be working on the trailer and some pitch deck next week, probably for the game. Or I think it's not going to be this week. I thought it's going to be this week, but I think it's going to slip to the week after. But mid-September for sure, we will work more on the marketing side of things. It sounds serious, I guess, but I really don't have a good grasp yet on this. I'm a bit scared, but I hope it's just going to go well once we have some cool assets. And I think it's time to create that Steam page as well for the game. So we will do that for sure. I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, oh yeah, I was also studying the Steam algorithm, so that's why how to market a game is a pretty cool place to learn about that, and also learn about scorecard marketing from more traditional business sources. So I highly recommend looking into anything you can. I typically look outside of game related marketing, just understand what else is going on in the world and how other businesses market themselves, and I think is a good source. So all in all, that's what we've been working on. Next week we will, as I mentioned, probably have some time on the pitch deck and trailer. I think this is good, like the pitch deck, even if we are not using it right away. I think it's awesome if we have something in the pocket, right, that we could just pull up and always talk about this game in a concise manner. And the trailer is important. I think that will really drive what are our priorities, and what we already started working on that. That's why we are making our current build as pretty as possible, because we will need it for the trailer and for marketing content. So I will also work on finalizing the building. So this is a realization, right, that some of the buildings that we are using in the current build are probably 3-4 months old, and I think there's much more work with them. So they're not done. I thought for a while that they are done, but they are actually not done. I will also keep working on the UI, and Marzi will keep connecting those biomes. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and this is Monday morning. It's 8:23 right now, and I think I'm gonna just have one more coffee and get started. Start another week and make Strange Desert a reality. In case you would like to stay in touch or reach out to me, you could follow me on X. I think that's the best place to find me for the time being. Or just send me a message on Substack or Spotify. The link in the description of the episode will help you to navigate to these places simply. And you can also sign up for my mailing list and get notified through email when I drop a new episode or any new piece of information about the game we are working on. Thanks very much for listening, and talk to you next week. Bye.